Okay, we're officially live, or we should be live for those of you who are tuning in. First of all, welcome to Northwestern virtually. We're really excited to be here. We're really excited to chat a little bit more about what it's like to be a part of the residential experience at Northwestern. To give you a brief introduction as to who I am, my name is Mauricio Gonzalez. I'm an assistant director of admission at Northwestern. I also have the privilege of calling myself an alum. I graduated from Northwestern about 2 years ago in 2018. I've been there ever since, and I'm really proud to call myself an alum, work with wonderful people, just as the ones that you've probably talked with, the ones that you'll see today. And I originally live in Chicago, so not too far away from Evanston, currently at home, as I'm sure most of us are, in wherever we are around the world. We hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. I know that there are going to be, if there are questions related to COVID-19, how that looks like for y'all in relation to this topic and other topics moving forward. Just so you know, as more information is coming to us as a university, we'll be able to give you that information as it comes. I just wanted to address that. And again, wish and hope that everyone is healthy. We also have some links in our description that you can see that will be helpful throughout this and after our information session. If you have any questions throughout this entire time, we will address them in the latter half of this session. However, if we don't get to one of your questions here during this hour or so that you're with us today, we'll be following up with you via email and answering those questions from our students, from our wonderful staff. So I also just wanted to do all that due diligence right off the bat. But that's enough from me. We're gonna pass it over to the true guest here today. Brad Zakarin, will you introduce yourself? And then in the rest of our order, we'll go about introducing ourselves just so everyone knows who they're chatting with here this afternoon, morning, night, wherever folks are today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad Zakarin. I'm Director of Residential Academic Initiatives.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Hubinsky, and I serve as the Interim Director for Residential Life.
Hi, my name is Melissa Foster, and I am the faculty in residence. I'm also a professor in the School of Communication. Do you want me to talk more about what that means?
Sure, go for it. That'd be great.
I'd love to. Okay, so like I said, I'm Melissa Foster, and I actually serve as a dual role here on campus. That means that I'm getting a phone call. That means that I am a professor in music theater, and I also live on campus with my family, my husband and my daughter, in a home or apartment that is directly connected to a residence hall. There are 5 of us on campus, and we sort of serve to break down that invisible barrier that exists between the sort of residential and academic experience. What that means, opportunities that I can bring to you at your doorstep that you might not otherwise get, like guests coming here for dinner with you. This year we had President Shapiro come for dessert and answer questions. We had sushi dinner with the provost, so about 25 residents were in my apartment picking his brain. Great other guests and speakers answering questions and doing sort of rip from the topic discussions, rip from the headlines about activism and identity, things like that. We take a lot of outings to theater because that's my passion. I'm sure other faculty and residents do the same. And we also help sort of build a community. We're one of the people that do that in this huge mechanism. With smaller and more informal events, one of my favorites that I do is Wine Wednesday, WHINE, that is hosted with sort of tea and cookies, and people come together sort of informally to vent, let off steam, celebrate, whatever it is. And I also bring sort of a sense of home to the residence hall with my family. My daughter actually has her own event. She's the one who's come in 3 times during me talking. She's 8, and she has an event called Spot the Tot. That is an event where she goes around somewhere in the building with treats. And if you spot her while she yells cupcakes up and down your hallway, she will give you the treat and you have won the prize. So that's sort of some of the things that a faculty in residence would be in your area.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. I'm sure that was great to sort of get right off the bat for our in-resident experience. Do we just want to continue on? Dani, Sid, do you want to briefly introduce yourself, just like with your name, what you do on campus, and then we'll kick it back to Brad so we can move forward and get to know all the other wonderful folks here today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Dani O'Hara. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a resident director on campus down in the South area. I actually work with Melissa down here as well as another faculty in residence. My primary things are safety and security and community engagement, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I work primarily with the faculty in residence and supervise all of our resident assistants who are peer leaders in our buildings. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thanks. Sid, do you want to introduce yourself as one of the resident assistants, just with your name, the fact that you're a student, maybe what you're studying, and then we can get back to Brad.
Absolutely. Hey everyone, my name is Sid. I'm a senior. This year I'm a senior RA. It's my third year being a resident assistant. And so I really am sort of the middleman between students and administrators and faculty across campus, studying industrial engineering, and excited to talk to you all today.
Awesome. Thanks, Sid. Thank you all for being here again. Again, for anyone watching, drop your questions, especially as you have heard already from a few of our guests. But I know that Brad and Paul have some exciting things to share. So I'll kick it back to you, Brad. Let's take it away.
Great. Thanks, Mauricio. We're really thrilled to have our three frontline representatives of the residential experience in Melissa, Dani, and Sid here. Paul and I want to take a few minutes at least to cover some of the overarching themes and mechanics of the residential experience while we've got you on the line. The first thing that I wanted to make sure to talk a little bit about is the residential areas that we have here at Northwestern. It's a relatively new and exciting development for us to be able to offer 4 distinctive residential areas there. So that's a chance to see how the housing master plan is shaping campus. And as new facilities and amenities come online, what you're going to get is a better view of what sorts of common spaces are available and where various amenities are. We really encourage students to live beyond their building. We want them to take advantage of what is available across the wider area. And truly, whatever is in the area is going to be quite nearby to where a student lives. So if a student wants to live in a small building, they can still have access to some of the amenities that would be sitting in a larger building within the area. Just a few amenities of note that you'll see across our areas: fitness spaces, collaboration spaces with ample wireless connectivity to display screens for group work. We have seminar rooms where students can take classes and get academic support. Various services from dining to 24/7 operation desks are available consistently across our 4 residential areas. And as I mentioned before, you're going to see a fair amount of programming and the academic connections to courses and tutoring.
So at Northwestern, you'll find dedicated faculty and staff who have a strong commitment to providing a student-focused experience in our residence halls and residential communities. The 2-year residency requirement provides one of the few settings at Northwestern that all students experience together. Because of this, the area concept reflects our strong commitment to equity of experience for all of our residents. Student agency, or the opportunity to shape your residential experience to fit your needs and interests, matters to us. While not all campuses allow you to communicate your housing preferences, we do. So whether you're interested in living in a small building with 25 residents or a large building of 500 residents, whether you're interested in living in a themed residential college or a traditional residence hall, being part of a residential area allows you to pick the kind of building you're most interested in while not sacrificing opportunities and amenities. Like Brad was saying, nearby you'll find a fitness room or a dining hall. You'll always have that involvement with the faculty and residents, and all those amenities will be available just steps away from the building that you live in. I encourage you to visit our area websites to learn a little bit more, to get a sense of the consistency and the uniqueness of each of our residential areas. In order to help explain the residential experience further, you'll now hear from our featured guest. These speakers represent the roles of faculty and residents, resident directors, and resident assistants. The staff you hear from are universally available regardless whatever area you live in. I'll now turn it over to Melissa Foster, our faculty and residents in the South area.
Take it away, Melissa. I just want to interject before Melissa takes it away again. We were having a little bit of a lag. That was my bad on my part. For anyone tuning in, for my engineers out there, I was using my Wi-Fi instead of an Ethernet cable. Rookie mistake. But we should be all set. Just wanted to acknowledge that, but we're all fine now. Melissa, take it away.
Hi, good. I did most of my introduction. I combined them so that you know, but I just wanted to sort of review. I am a faculty in residence, so my husband, my daughter, and I live here. There are 5 of us on campus. We're spread sort of equally around. So when you come and have your residential experience, you will be connected to one of us. Each of us have sort of our own specific flair of what we do, but our common goal is the same, which is to help humanize faculty and provide that reciprocal relationship so that approaching faculty in other situations is easier to do.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. And now that you've shared a little bit more about what you're doing, Dani, I know you have some fun things to share in relation to that and beyond. Do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm a resident director, and there are 8 of us full-time live-in professionals on campus. That equals out to about, you get 3 full-time staff between the RDs and the faculty and residents who are dedicated to their very specific areas for their students. We're here to be accessible and to be visible stewards of our communities. And my primary goal as a resident director is to provide safety and security, and then community engagement. Melissa already started talking about the community engagement piece, and that's a huge part of our role with them. We really want to create opportunities for students to be able to engage with offices on campus, but also each other. Good examples of that, like even right now in the midst of all of the COVID-19 stuff, we're working to provide an opportunity for students to connect with our academic support and learning office so that they can be successful during this remote time period. We've held a Lunar New Year event to make sure students who aren't able to celebrate with their families are able to celebrate with each other. We've had bowling nights. We've taken a trip to a haunted house. Melissa has taken people on several outings to like theater and musical productions that have been occurring on campus. And we've also been able to take students to a bowls game and be in a sweet box. So these are all really cool opportunities we've been able to provide for students. And something I'll highlight with that is Northwestern has a commitment to making sure that all of our events are financially accessible. What that means is that all of our events are provided to students at no charge. We will never ask students to give money. We will never ask them to provide anything up front so that they can attend these events. They're completely free for our students. So next piece is our safety and security. We are all mental health first aid certified. What that means is if we are responding in emergencies, we are able to kind of triage the situation, make sure a student is going to be okay, and then connect them with the necessary resources. That could be health services, that could be our counseling center, that could be academic related. But we're here to make sure that they're safe 24/7. There is always someone available and there's always someone on call for them. So a part of that is obviously the faculty and residents and the resident directors are really nice full-time staff, but we also want to make sure we have that peer level support. And that's why our resident assistants are really important. And we also serve to supervise and train all of them. Sid, I'm going to hand it off to you in just a second, but we bring them in several weeks before any of our students even arrive and train them for weeks to make sure they're ready to be the best peer leaders, the best peer advocates and support that they can be for all the students coming to campus. So with that, Sid, go ahead and take it away.
Go for it, Sid.
Thanks, Dani. Thanks, Mauricio. So awesome. Just as Dani mentioned, really our job as RAs is to be a very direct support to you. There's typically in any area between 12 and 15 RAs, right? And so that gives us an awesome opportunity to connect with you directly, really beyond being just there to support you, to be your friend, right? And so a quick story on mine. I actually transferred from UT Austin after my freshman year, and it's a tough transition, right? Coming to a brand new school. And I had a really awesome RA who was there for me, who guided me, who helped me find resources. And so I think that's really what motivated me to become an RA for 3 years is I think the impact it can have during that really important transition period. So over my 3 years, lived in a variety of different buildings, right? From Bob McCulloch, which is massive as hall, close to 500 kids in that area, to Ayers, which is mid-sized, more towards 150 kids or so. And as you can imagine, across different res colleges, across different res halls, there's vast differences in size, differences in culture, differences in the different facilities available there. But really, everyone, all of them have different pros, different cons. Bob McCulloch, very social, large community. So when you come in as a freshman, great opportunity for you to meet a ton of people. Ayers, a little bit more cozy and small. So if you want some more smaller interactions, great way for you to get that. And really, I've had an awesome experience in both, right? So once again, I don't think you can go wrong with any res hall on campus. Alongside, these different buildings, most of the areas, and as Melissa was saying, there's a FER, so faculty. I've actually collaborated, worked with both FERs in McCulloch as well as in Ayers. Tolly is the FER for Bob McCulloch, and Gonzalez is the FER for Ayers. And really great opportunity for you to talk directly with professors beyond just the classroom interaction, right? And so I've had a really phenomenal experience talking to them more about their research, actually hosting events with them as an RA for residents like you. And so it's really been fantastic working as an RA this year and supporting all of you. And so passing it on to Brad now, who's going to talk a little bit more about res colleges.
Go for it, Brad. Do it.
I think you're on mute.
So I'm going to unmute myself. Sorry, we're also adjusting the Zoom here. You're watching us live. The residential colleges have been part of my professional portfolio for the last 7 years as director of residential academic initiatives, but I've been at Northwestern for 13 years, and for 12 of those, I've been a fellow at Willard Residential College. So I bring a lot of lived experience to the residential colleges. The tradition of residential colleges at Northwestern is coming up on 50 years old. There are currently 10 residential colleges. Most of them have themes like International Studies Residential College or the Residential College of Science and Engineering. Some of them are multi-thematic like Willard, like Shepherd Residential College. One of the things that makes the residential colleges distinctive is they are led by faculty chairs. They are supported by associate chairs who are typically other faculty members and assistant chairs who are PhD students. The critical thing that college leadership does, the faculty chair, associate chair, and assistant chair, is they support a strong student executive board in each residential college. And that building level student leadership really helps distinguish the residential colleges. In fact, tonight happens to be the annual conference for new officers, and it's being held virtually because those new leaders feel a great responsibility to carry on their work, even if it's in a virtual environment for residents. Some of the things that really distinguish the residential colleges experientially is that they have affiliated faculty and staff called fellows. And so all of the residential colleges have once or twice a week lunches where the fellows and the college leaders join other residents for casual meals. There are also regular coffee hours and teas, depending on which residential college you're talking about. And the fellows end up entering these informal mentorship roles with the student members, which really helps build these long-standing relationships that extend well beyond students' time living on campus and even well beyond their time at Northwestern. It's really important to mention that one's academic program is not their housing destiny. We have theater majors who choose to live in the Residential College of Science and Engineering, and we have engineers who like to live in the Humanities Residential College. We want students to get everything they can out of Northwestern, and sometimes what they want is a break from their academic program where they live and have another passion area fulfilled. It's critical to note that because of the consistency of the residential area experience that Paul and I described, everybody is going to have a rich and fulfilling experience with touch points to people like Dani and Melissa and Sid. For people who are looking for a little bit more and maybe something a little bit more tailored, that's where the residential colleges come into play. And those are really good options to check out on our website. So I am going to continue things into some of the nuts and bolts of what you all might be most interested in, certainly based on the questions that Mauricio has been populating for us to get a preview of. Now that you've heard all of these amazing features of living on campus at Northwestern, you're probably wondering where to sign up, how to sign up, and how to get exactly what you want. So a few nuts and bolts worth mentioning. Deposits are due by May 1st. There is a link available to the handout with details for the spring 2020 housing assignment process. It's got key dates. It's got that map of the residential areas I alluded to before, and some very popular FAQs that are worth mentioning. In the month of May, you can change your preferences 10 times, 100 times, however often you want. And there's really no downside to doing so. We realize that there's information that becomes available that students are going to not have available to them on May 1. Maybe they connect with somebody over social media in the middle of May that changes their plans. So don't worry about changing your preferences all the way up to June 1. Now, we know that there are some questions that have already popped up in the chat about roommates. I want to emphasize up front that fewer than 10% of incoming students identify a roommate for the housing process. The vast majority of students come in as individuals, and based on a brief survey about personal habits like staying up late and such, they will be paired with a roommate. So please don't feel any pressure to identify a roommate, but certainly if you know somebody or you connect with somebody in the weeks ahead, we will honor all roommate requests that come in by June 1. Now, with respect to the residential colleges that I was talking about in the previous section, and our greenhouse, which is a special interest housing option related to sustainability, when you go online to complete your housing contract, you will be prompted to write the optional essay for the residential colleges or greenhouse. These are very brief essays. They're simply an opportunity to communicate to the faculty and staff leadership of those entities why it is you're interested, what it is you want to bring to the community, and what it is you think you will get out of the community. These are really just meant to be thought of as introductions to yourself, not like college application essays. And they then are fed out to the faculty and staff leadership of those entities so that they can make decisions about who will be living with them in the fall. I'm going to turn it over to Paul now to go over a few more details, and then we will move along with the agenda.
So we know that online you'll find a lot of information about the housing options at Northwestern, but we do encourage you to look at our website and our materials for the most current and up-to-date information. A lot has changed over the last few years with our housing master plan and the introduction of the area model, and we're introducing more changes for incoming students that won't be reflected elsewhere. We've talked a lot today about the programmatic experience of living in the halls and logistics of signing up for a room, but I want to talk a little bit more about some of those services we provide to help create caring communities. So we have a couple of essential services that Dani gave you some information about that I'll expand upon. In terms of safety and security, all of our buildings are card access only. At night, you'll find a community service officer staffing the entrance of each building to monitor access and serve as a point of resource. Additionally, our resident assistants and our resident director staff serve on call, and they're able to respond to questions and connect students to resources 24 hours a day. Each residential area also has a 24-hour operations desk, which provides another point of contact for questions, or they can provide you with the occasional assistance when you're locked out of your room. We have mail and package centers on each side of campus, ready to accept deliveries and care packages from families and friends. And on top of these services, there are also dining locations in each area that meet the wide variety of dining tastes and needs. So to talk more about that, we have our Director of Dining, Stacey Brown, here.
Stacey, are you there?
I am.
Great.
Hi, I'm
Go for
Stacey
it.
Brown. I'm the director of dining. So now that you've heard a lot about where you could live, let's talk about what you're going to eat. So we have 4 residential dining commons across campus. Each location is all you care to eat, and many of our locations have undergone significant renovations over the last 2 years in order to provide a more inclusive dining experience. So as many people have talked about community at Northwestern, we feel strongly that dining can also help build and support community. To To that end, we focus on creating options for as many people as possible at each dining commons. That way you're never making a decision about whether to eat with friends or to go someplace alone because that dining commons doesn't have the right choices for your life. So at each location, we offer Pure Eats, a station that provides meals without the top 8 allergens, as well as sesame. It's also our option for those with celiac or for folks who avoid gluten. We have Rooted, our vegan station, which serves as the home base for our vegan and vegetarian students. But we certainly incorporate vegan and vegetarian offerings into all of our stations. We have 2 kosher kitchens, one in Elder and one in Allison, and we offer halal chicken and ground beef every day. Those are our everyday chicken and ground beef choices throughout the program. While we have some offerings like pizza, which are somewhat standard across the program, each location has a few things that set them apart. For instance, Elder has a street food station where Chef Patrick is rotating in global street food offerings daily. Allison actually has a teaching kitchen program where Chef Taurus is doing hands-on cooking classes for 10 to 20 students at a time. Sargent is the home of our in-house bakery, which means delicious treats no matter the time of day. And finally, our Foster Walker location boasts the entire east side of the dining hall. Is actually specifically focused on Pure Eats, including made-to-order options and special daily desserts and salads. If you're like me, however, sometimes you need a Starbucks, so we have one of those. We actually have 14 retail locations on campus. We have rotating local restaurants. We have Ahmad Pizza and Patty Squared, which is our local burger concept by Amy Morton. Your open access meal plan comes with $125 dining dollars per quarter, which can be spent at the retail locations, as well as 2 meal exchanges per week, which can be used in some of those retail spots as well. A whole bunch more information about the locations, as well as meal plan specifics for your open access meal plan, which is required of all of our first year students, can be found on the website dining.northwestern.edu, and it's also in the links. And I just want to briefly mention our campus dietitian. So we have a dietitian on campus that helps students with a variety of things. She helps those with allergies and celiac navigate by setting up chef meetings and location manager meetings, but she also counsels students for a variety of issues. So if you ever have questions or need help, she's absolutely there to support you. She counsels about 30 students each quarter, so you can definitely reach out to her. Her email is also included in the links. We hope that the program meets your needs and that you spend your time at Northwestern well fed. But if you're missing something from home or would like to ask questions or provide feedback, we actually make changes weekly based on student feedback. So we're always willing to hear what you have to say. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Stacey. Awesome. Y'all have a lot of questions here, and they're all really great for our wonderful staff. Is there anything that wants to be shared before we kick it off? I know that we have already a game plan. Yes, for those tuning in, we have a little behind the scenes action going on here. Is there anything that wants to be added before we address the oh so popular North versus South campus in proximity to academics?
Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Who wants to take it away?
I'll go ahead and start again. I'm Dani. Hi. So we know that there can be anxiety about where you're living and how close it is to classes or not to classes. Is that the right place to be or not? And so we just want to address some of that. So just to start, what we generally see, or what I generally see being in South Campus, is I do have a lot of students who are in BNN, liberal arts, theater, communications, journalism. And that's because they are closer to their class locations here. Our North tends to have a lot of our STEM. Our engineering students love being up there because of how close they can be to things like the garage. And so those are kind of just in terms of the actual academic split where people tend to be. What I will say is I do have a fair share of engineering students who actually enjoy having the separation. They enjoy being able to live in South Campus and feel like they're taking a break. They have that nice like 10 to 15 minute walk up to class in the morning. They have that nice walk back to decompress. They're able to really separate. And I think it just really depends on what resonates with you. Would you rather have the time to like prepare, decompress, or do you like being in it all the time? And is that what's going to push you to be a better student and make you have a better experience? I think also sometimes students look at what's closer to them. In the North, they're closer to the fitness center. A lot of things are closer together. They have a main walkway that they can utilize. I think in the South, we're closer to the downtown area of Evanston. We're closer to theater and different arts that are going on. And so I think it also just kind of depends on what are your interests and what do you want to be close to. We actually have the benefit of Melissa was a student here as well. And so she can actually speak to her experience, literally having her classes on one side and living on the other. So I'll hand it off to Melissa.
I did. I was placed, I was a music major and was placed at the residence hall that was the literal farthest kitty corner opposite end of the campus, and I cried. However, it was not far at all. Everything Dani said is true. That 10-minute walk was fantastic. And I got to meet all of these people that I wouldn't have met. It was hands down my favorite year of college, just because I got to do a whole bunch of different things. It sort of opened up this world of possibilities socially and just experientially.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I'd say Melissa hit it, and Melissa and Dani hit it really well. But also adding on that, I mean, the campus itself is only like 10 or 12 minutes end to end, right? And when I'm late to class, I can sprint walk it in like 7 or 8 minutes, right? So it really is not a huge issue being on the other end of campus. I've personally, living up in North Campus, I'm an engineer, and so of course a lot of my classes do happen up north, but a lot of my electives and sort of not engineering classes happen way down south, right? And so either way, there's a commute. You're not going to ever have all your classes up north. And we have great resources like, awesome buses that are constantly running back and forth, which make it really convenient. I'd say a huge chunk of kids on campus actually have bikes. I had a bike that made it really easy for me to go down south easily. At the same time, I mean, there's a lot of facilities down south, including downtown Evanston's right there, right? So if you ever want to grab food there, socialize with friends, it's a trek, right? Whereas up north, there's facilities like the gym, SPAC, the garage. And so at the end of the day, I think my point here is that there's huge pros and cons, right? Both are good areas to live in. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just to add on, just one more anecdote, even though I know that y'all covered it pretty well. I also am an alum, for those who are joining in or have been here since the beginning. I was a chemistry major my first year at Northwestern, and I lived in Shepherd Residential. Well, at that time it was residential college, now it's residential hall. And tech, which is where a lot of those classes would be taken, was somewhat on the other end of campus. It was awesome to live with people who were different from my major. It was really enjoyable. I'm not just saying that. It was an awesome experience being with like music majors, theater majors, other STEM and engineering majors. So Harley, I highly, highly agree with that. And your housing option is not your destiny when it comes to academics. You'll get your walking in, it'll be great. So all of our residence halls are wonderful and renovated, which is really very great, especially as someone who graduated a couple of years ago. Thank you, y'all. Let me see, there's also a question for anyone, whoever wants to take it, about if you don't apply for a residential college, is there still a possibility of being housed in a residential college does that make sense?
Sure. Every year, obviously, the interests of incoming students will vary a bit. And also with respect to the residential colleges, the number of returning students to that college might vary a bit. So there is sometimes space left over after the application process for incoming students. So some number of students through the general housing assignments process may well end up in a residential college. I will just offer one anecdote from my time as a Willard Fellow. One of the most ardent Willard participants and student leaders, somebody with whom I'm still in touch, was somebody who did not expect to end up in Willard, but then when he got there, not knowing exactly what a residential college was or was supposed to be, he had such a profound experience that it was hard for him to imagine his Northwestern experience without it. So most people who end up in residential colleges get there via the application process, but depending on the year, some will end up there through assignments.
Great, awesome, Brad. And I kind of want to address this question because it keeps coming up. Stacey, I hope you're prepared, willing to address this. There are a lot of questions on what are options like, and just in general, we're getting themes of like, oh, what's the food like on North Campus, South Campus on a given day? And lots of conversation about hot cookie bar. I'll let you address that however you'd like to address it.
Sure. So the food is what we try to do at each location is create a very similar experience. So much like the areas, you're going to have access to a kosher kitchen on the north side, or you would have vegan, vegetarian at each location. So that's like somewhat common. There are certain special things at each location that will make it a little different, but the food from North or South Campus is a very similar experience. As for the hot cookie bar, we currently do not have the hot cookie bar programmed. We are always accepting feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacey. Really glad to give people what they want. They wanted the answer, and that was awesome. Thanks. A question in general. We're getting a lot of themes and questions on related to the pros and cons of residential colleges, as Jack just asked, or what are some things to consider when deciding between a residential hall and a residential college? Do y'all want to provide some insights? I know that this is a question that many of y'all may have something to share. So I don't know if there's anyone who wants to jump right in and talk about that right off the bat. For example, like considerations when choosing a residential hall or residential college.
I would say like some things I work with residence halls and the residential colleges that are in the South area. And what I would say is the residential colleges have a very high level of engagement. What I mean by that is they actually have a board of students on top of the RAs that they have who program, who have a presence, who work to make sure students have opportunities to engage. They always do this huge formal every year that they absolutely love. They do all of these little events for people to actually get to know each other in their building. And the residence halls also do that, but I would say it's more general in that it's not necessarily tailored toward a specific program or interest. The benefit of a res college is that you're going to have a lot of like-minded people in terms of like what you're studying or a hobby or something you're interested in that are surrounding you for the most part, outside of obviously some folks who will be assigned to those inevitably through assignments anyway. And I've never heard a student dislike their experience in a res college. They appreciate the opportunity to like have more of these engagement moments, to be in a smaller community. Some of our residence halls are going to be larger. Allison is a residence hall and it's much larger. And so you'll get to meet a lot more people. You'll be in a more general community where there could be a lot more variance in terms of who's studying what. And you'll have access to RAs and to me obviously as well in the FERS. But I think it's just more what kind of experience are you looking for in terms of if you want to be in a res college or a residence hall. Sid can also speak to his experience as well.
Yeah, definitely, Dani. Thanks. So as an example, I actually, as an engineer, lived in Ayers my first year, which is the College of Commerce and Industry. So it's, I mean, traditionally it's, one would say it's for business students, but absolutely incorrect because there's so many different students from across so many majors. And for me, it was a really good opportunity because although I was studying industrial engineering, I eventually wanted to get into business and see opportunities there. And so Ayers hosts a business symposium. Different speakers come out, which is a great opportunity for us to learn more about that field. It's also, interesting because often in a residential college, as Dani said, although there is variety, there are a lot of students who are from like a specific background, so it's easy to collaborate. So for example, in Slivka, I lived there for 1 quarter, and there are a lot of engineering kids there, which is great in terms of the academic end for if I want to collaborate with kids, for different assignments, or if I have group projects, it's easy to meet there as a meeting point. But once again, it's not fixed at all. I mean, AIRS technically is for business-minded students, but I was an engineer and I was there, so I think it's kind of open to whatever your interests are, despite your major.
And sometimes students will pick a residential college that has a theme that is different from their major in order to continue to explore that topic area or that interest. So it just gives them some variety in terms of what their experience is like here on campus.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more with y'all. I think like one of the biggest things that I always try to take away is that your needs change every single year. I lived on campus for 3 years, actually, when I was a Northwestern student. I lived in a residential college my first year, and that was wonderful. I lived in a residential community, something along those lines, in faculty residence hall. And that was wonderful too. It's different experiences. And then my 3rd year, I lived in a smaller residential hall on the north side of campus. And for me, my needs change every single year. But the thing that I want to drive back is that in all 3 of those residence halls, I had, thanks to the hard work of the staff shown here and the staff that I interacted with as a student, I had a really great community. I never felt like I was alone. I always had people to go to. And I really enjoyed the friends that I made in my res halls that I still talk to these days. So I just want to drive that back home, especially as an alum. Like, I think that the facilities are awesome, and I'm glad that y'all are being very meticulous and conscientious of the things that go into like the physical part of living on campus. But I think the community aspect is something that's pretty unique to us and something that I really enjoyed, and couldn't be made possible without the wonderful people and beyond shown in residential services and dining services, everything along those lines. Sorry for the noise outside. We're literally live from my home, so I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. But thanks, y'all. Just Stacey, do you want to address a little bit about the open access meal plan and the sort of requirements to go beyond that before I kick it back to residential services?
Yeah, so the open access meal plan is required for all of our first year students. So that is unlimited access to the dining halls, as well as our dining dollars, which is like a dollar for dollar declining balance spend, and then 2 meal exchanges per week. So we operate in continuous dining. So we have an operation open from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight, almost every day of the week. So you can really come and visit us anytime, swipe in if you just need a quick coffee, if you just want a fruit, you can utilize your meal plan anytime, all the time.
Wonderful, thank you so much. We're also getting a lot of questions in relation to the layouts of these specific res halls and res colleges, everything along those lines, asking things like, does each res hall have a kitchen in it, or does each res hall have suites in it, or something along those lines? Does anyone want to address just broadly where students can find more information about this, specific to each residential building, and what that sort of, how the residential area allows for all of this integration to take place?
Sure, we have a variety of room types on campus. Some of our buildings are your traditional double-loaded corridor with community bathrooms. We have some suites that are considered open suites where there are some rooms around a central lounge area. We have buildings considered closed suites where you have rooms that share a lounge that isn't closed. So it really depends on what you're looking for. And our website will have the specific configuration for each building. It'll have sample floor plans of what each of those rooms looks like. All of our buildings, we have about 25 different buildings you can pick from. So you'll find buildings that have 25 students in them, up to 550 students, and each building has different amenities. Generally, you will find at least a public area kitchen in each building that is nicely appointed. You will find lounge spaces. And one of the ideas of the area concept is if you don't have a particular type of space in your building, You can walk steps away to the next building and find that amenity. For example, we talk about the fitness centers. We can't put a fitness center in each of the 25 buildings, but if you live in at North Mid Quads, which is a smaller building of about 72 students, you can walk 2 buildings over to Willard and have access to that kind of amenity. So even though the building, that's why we encourage you to look at our area websites. The area websites will talk a little bit more about those types of amenities you'll find within the area that you have access to, no matter which building you live in the area.
Awesome. Good to know all of that stuff. And again, like if there's anything that needs to be rehashed, there are links in our little description in this YouTube live stream. So feel free to refer back to that if and when questions do can come up. Stacey shared some wonderful information for me. I know there's a question a little bit back regarding whether we have a farmer's market throughout the year. Yes, we do have a farmer's market. We have one in our university center called Norris in the spring. And we also have a farmer's market in the city of Evanston, since it's literally steps away from campus in the fall on the south end of campus weekly. So lots of things to take into consideration when it comes to what Res Services has to offer, what the city of Evanston has to offer in terms of food. Food is very important. So I'm glad y'all are asking these questions because I love food and there's lots of things to take into consideration with that. I know that there are a lot of questions about the ranking and the sort of importance of that and everything along those lines and how much this takes into consideration. Brad, do you want to address that sort of ongoing theme that we're seeing in these questions we have here today?
Sure. Generally speaking, the vast majority of incoming students will get one of their top 5 preferences, provided they submit their housing deposit on time. And there are a few other considerations to keep in mind. One is for people who apply to residential colleges. Obviously, that is not a lotteried process. So, you know, putting down residential colleges, there is a human element behind whether one of those top few preferences of residential colleges would come into play. Another thing that occasionally happens that is worth mentioning up front so everybody is aware of it is, believe it or not, every now and again, we have roommates, people who self-identify as roommates who have completely contradictory housing preferences. And that makes it very hard for our colleagues who handle assignments to reconcile roommate preferences with building preferences. So it's really important to be consistent in what you're submitting so that our assignments team can be on top of this. Also, it is worth mentioning, again, that the vast majority of incoming students will get one of their top 5 preferences, and that at many of our peer institutions, there isn't even an opportunity to communicate housing preferences beyond your preferences or habits with respect to lifestyle that might inform a roommate choice. We really do take student agency seriously, and we really do want you to be thoughtful about everything from, do I want to live in a res college or a residence hall? Do I want to have the amenities of downtown Evanston, or do I want to be near the main fitness center on campus? Do I want to be near my classes, or, you know, be near sororities or something like that? So think about all of these things, because we listen and you get to communicate to us through your preferencing.
Yes. And I love that, the fact that Brad just addressed the fact that student agency is really what is taken into consideration all throughout the different aspects of Northwestern. I think that's a really unique and a really good point to drive home in all of this programming that we're doing throughout this month. So thanks, Brad, for sharing that, especially because, you know, I'm biased. I like Northwestern, I work for them, but we do try to always prioritize the student experience. So thanks for addressing that. We're also getting a lot of questions about students who are curious about the possibility of living on campus during their 3rd or 4th year, or however long they are beyond their 2nd year at Northwestern. Is that possible? And is there more priority given to returning students in terms of their housing preferences over 1st year or transfer students? Is there anyone who's very enthusiastic about addressing that. Looks like Paul, you're wanting to take it away. Go for it.
Start with that. We do have spaces on campus for third and fourth year students currently. So after your first and second year, if you enjoy that experience and want to stay on campus, we do provide that opportunity for you to choose rooms, and we hold some rooms back, which allow you to pick those rooms first before the other students. We do go in most of our buildings. We try to achieve about 50% first year and 50% second year students. So and then within that 50% of second year students, we do have some space for the upper class, for those juniors and seniors too. So there are opportunities. We have never had to turn away a junior or senior who is wishing to remain on campus. So we do have those options. One of the other questions I see is about the point system that you might hear about. So in the residential colleges, the more active you are in the community, the executive board and the residential college system assigns points to participating in those activities or taking on leadership roles in the communities. And those points are used for the returning student selection process in the residential colleges. So that allows you to pick your room within the res college in a separate process from the other returning students.
Thanks, Brad. And something I also wanted to address with all these different types is I made a slip up, and res services, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I probably did. So all of the two main types of housing on campus are residential colleges and residential halls. What I refer to as a residential community is a thing that we used to address in the past for the building in which our faculty live in residence. Melissa, you can jump in and talk more about this, because we're getting a lot of curiosity about what it's like to have a faculty live in resident in all of our res halls. Though from what we have available at Northwestern, we have these different areas where we clustered different buildings across campus into sort of an entity where our faculty live in residence connects with all of these different communities within these different halls. That's what we refer to as a now, and sort of in the past residential community, what I understood, but now is what considered a residential area. Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit more about how these interactions are made across halls? Because I know that, for example, you live in one building, but how are those interactions sort of taken into consideration and forged across all these different communities and different buildings in that area?
Oh, of course. It's easier than you think, because the areas are geographically situated so that the buildings are clustered together. So I live in one building, but to get to my apartment, if I were to be hosting something there, I would think is not more than a 5-6 minute walk at the very, very most. Most of the time it's about a 2-minute walk. And then we also host events in different buildings within our area, not just in our own primary building. So that's sort of that's how we can interface with you. You'll also see us sort of informally. We eat in the dining halls sometimes. We use different facilities within, like the engagement centers or the fitness center. I use the fitness center every day. So you'll see us sort of informally there. As far as addressing the question of, what's it like to have a faculty that lives in your building or your area, I think that is up to you. If you can engage with us a ton if you would like to. We will not chase you around, with lima beans and say that you didn't eat enough vegetables. We promise. So I think that is an advantage and an opportunity for you to take advantage of whenever you have the time and the desire to do so, which hopefully is a lot.
Exactly. I loved my residential area. It was great. So I'm just going to jump in and highlight that, I'm sure. And I know that you do a great job, Melissa. So thank you. There was another question that I was sort of, Kalista, I believe is your name. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Kalista Smith 13 on YouTube is asking if guests are permitted in residential halls.
Yes, you are allowed to have guests in your buildings. A lot of our students will have people who come and spend the weekend with them and things like that. This is your home and we want you to feel like it's home. and you're allowed to have guests in your home. What I would say with that is if you bring them in at night, we definitely have a sign in with our CSOs just so we know who's in our space for emergency response. So if like there's a fire alarm or something like that, we want to know who we need to make sure is safe. The other piece of that is just if you have a roommate, you want to make sure your roommate is on the same page as you in terms of when you have guests over.
Thanks, Melissa. Or not Melissa. Thank you, Melissa, again. But thank you, Dani, for the information you just shared. I was typing too quickly away, but I appreciate you too, Dani. Let me see. Can someone address Tony Chen and a lot of our other wonderful guests are asking about the possibility, if there are single rooms available for first-year students. And yeah, I think that's the general question people are asking.
The short answer is yes, there are single rooms available for incoming students. The number is typically on the low end. We wouldn't know that number until the returning student selection process is complete. We do anticipate having more single rooms available this year than in prior years due to some of the changes we're making with respect to eligibility of first years to live in certain buildings that have more singles.
Thank you for addressing that. Awesome. I think this is a great question, this next one I'm about to ask, for Dani and Sid. What happens if you and your roommates just aren't getting along? Asked by Sky Swan on YouTube.
Yeah, that does happen. We definitely have situations where roommates don't get along. When you first move in together, we have what we call the roommate agreement that you complete together to kind of set some standards for the space. That's what temperature do we both like? Seems like a basic question, but you'd be surprised how much variance there can be in that. What time do you like to go to bed? Is noise permitted after you go to bed? When do we talk on the phone? Different things like that. What is our getting ready in the morning schedule? We want to set you all up for success so you can get along, hopefully get along the best you can. Not every roommate pair is destined to be lifelong friends who want to live together for the next 5 years. But we want to make sure that you can live together for at least this year, right? Sid can talk more about what happens if we do get to a point where there is conflict. So I'll hand it off to Sid because the RAs are a huge part of that too.
Yeah, thanks, Dani. Definitely. So although we do not, it's not always what we'd love to see when there's roommate conflict, but it does happen as we would expect. So there's a couple options you typically have, depending on how available different buildings on campus are with different rooming assignments. This past year we had, I think we were at like almost 90% or a little bit higher capacity. And so we didn't have that many rooms available, but if there are rooms available, you can typically ask to change your room to a different room in a different building, for example. And that may be if someone else is living in a room that's traditionally for 2 people, but there's only 1 person, you can get moved to that room. There's also an opportunity you can just do a roommate swap. So if you have a friend who's living with another roommate and you want to trade roommates, that's also a feasible option. The third is that we helped you, mediate the conflict, which, we hope we could try in the first place. But if that doesn't work out, the first 2 are things that we try to make happen. Once again, depending on how available buildings are. Sometimes it's not possible. And so sometimes you have to just wait it out until an opening comes up.
Awesome. Thanks, Sid. Thanks, Dani. It'll work out. I promise. Growing up, becoming an adult, living on Northwestern's campus, it's a new process. I wanted to address a few questions. We're getting questions about related to the low-income student experience, particularly around waiving housing deposits, receiving scholarships or something along those lines. I will address a few of those right now. So Paul is doing the wonderful job of letting you know that if students have a tuition deposit waiver, they will also have a housing deposit waiver. So that should be waived for you when it comes time to, settle all of those wonderful things that you have to do to become a Northwestern student. And we are also encouraging you to, if you are curious, to look and to contact our housing directly. Their email address is available on the description of our YouTube video for any waiver questions. I will allow Brad to briefly address how these scholarships work and how financial aid is sort of worked out when it comes to selecting a room. I see your answer here, Brad, but I want you to be able to properly address it.
Sure. Just in brief, the way undergraduate financial aid approaches housing is to peg support to the high end of our double room rates. If you go through to our room rate page, which you can get to from any of our building profile page by clicking on the room type, you'll see that different rooms and different buildings of different styles have some different rates. And so the high end of the double room rate is what is used to calculate the financial aid award. And also within the personal expense line of a financial aid award, financial aid has calculated that to cover the highest social dues rate of any building, because each building does carry social dues for the sorts of programming that Dani and Sid and I have talked about, and that will be covered at the highest rate.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Just to briefly address these, we're getting a lot of questions of like, are there microwaves? Are there TVs? And everything along those lines. In most common areas, anyone can step in to correct me if I'm wrong. There are there's microwaves, there's also TV and different lounges, which is really great. There was also some other questions that I seem to slip by. But if anyone is curious, there's more information on what each building has in terms of facilities on their website. And if that is not already included, I will include it in the description below. Is there anything else that wants to be added on that note before we move on? We're good? Okay, how are we feeling here on the wonderful Zoom call that we're doing? Good? You can nod your head. Cool. So it looks like we're just wrapping up on time. And for those who are tuned in again, if we didn't get to your specific question, we have wonderful staff who have been going through your comments and looking to see what questions haven't been addressed. Again, we'll follow up with you via email. Wow, words are hard sometimes, y'all. If those questions do come up, feel free to drop them right now if there's anything that does come up as well. And we'll follow up with y'all. What else was I going to say? Is there any parting words that y'all want to give our wonderful admitted students, hashtag NU2224, before we wrap up here today?
South area, woo! We're excited to, had to do the plug. Melissa and I both work there. We're excited to see you in the fall. And we hope that you're joining us in the South area or any of our other wonderful areas.
I know we hear that students put a lot of pressure on themselves for this process, and really, as you've heard throughout the day today, is you really can't go wrong. We encourage you to think about the type of experience you're looking for, how you want it to either supplement or complement your academic experience, and put those preferences down. And really, wherever you end up, you have the opportunity to have a great experience there. So don't worry about it. We'll be able to give you a good experience wherever you end up.
Yes, relax, I think, is the main takeaway. It can be a condition of the Northwestern experience to be overwhelmed by the choices available to you, the wonderful opportunities on a silver platter, but take it one step at a time. Don't ever have the feeling that with respect to a housing option, that it's this building or bust, because every building has its own virtues. Every building is part of a vibrant residential area. Every residential area has faculty and residents, resident directors, resident assistants. You're going to have great people and great opportunities no matter where you end up living. And you're going to be near something that you do appreciate. Maybe it's not the fitness center, maybe it's downtown Evanston. Maybe you have a long walk that you're dreading when you move to campus, but you end up being glad that you have it during midterm season when you just need to take a break and feel like you're walking away from classes. Everything's going to be great. So enjoy shopping for housing and don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, hey everyone. Just as a student, I want to let all of you know that you will be okay. I came in as a transfer, had no idea what to expect, had no idea where I'd be living, and I loved my 3 years here. Right, I couldn't have asked for a better experience. So things will be okay. I mean, you can try to plan everything out. It probably won't go as planned, but just enjoy these 3 years and make the best of them.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our wonderful guests. I'm still figuring out Zoom. I'm pulling y'all up on our gallery room so everyone can see your wonderful faces as we sort of part ways here today. Just to do some housekeeping items with all of our admitted students who are still tuning in. I see the number going down, so you share this with your friends if you want to. Thanks for tuning in. First of all, I don't know what time it is where you are, never know what time it is, but thank you for tuning in. We hope everyone is staying healthy and safe. We are here if you have any questions in relation to housing and the residential experience. Their links and their email addresses are listed in our description. If you have any questions for us, you can also, like the admissions office, we also have our email address available in our description. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notification, do whatever you want to. This session will be publicized on our YouTube channel as a document, so feel free to share this with others, rewatch it, do whatever you'd like. For those interested in tuning in, we have another one of these wonderful sessions with our Multicultural Student Affairs Office and Student Enrichment Services Office on community and inclusion tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thursday, we have a session with our wonderful panelists from our senior counselors cohort, so current students work on our admission office, Thursday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then when it comes to other programming, we have a few Instagram Q&As available on our Instagram channel. It's at Northwestern Admissions with an S at the end. There's a link to that in our description as well. Please follow us. As someone who oversees the Instagram account, it'd be wonderful to see y'all participating. There's great content that we work on, so I just wanted to encourage that. And of course, refer to our admitted student website for any more information. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our wonderful guests. And we hope everyone stays safe and healthy. Have a great night, day, morning, evening, y'all. Bye, y'all. You can do a little wave as I pull you all up again. And now I'm just trying to end the stream.